Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be talking about a tornado outbreak that's expected to occur across portions of Minnesota, South Dakota, even down to portions of Iowa, Nebraska, even potentially down to portions of Missouri and Kansas. Now, severe weather risk does push farther to the southeast by tomorrow, but it won't be as big as today, but it will be happening across portions of the Midwest down to parts of the Southern Plains, and it does move a little bit further to the south and east by Wednesday in the portions of the north from the northeast and the parts of several plains. There's also something going on in the tropics as well that we're also going to be talking about as well. Before we get started this video, if you guys like weather related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel. Plus, we'll have more updates on some of these topics over the next couple of days, so definitely stay tuned for more updates as well. Let's get started with the watch warning advisory display, and we do have a tornado watch in the portions of Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa. Even a tornado warning out there as well. You got flash flood watches to the north. You also got red flag warnings over portions of New Mexico, Texas, Colorado. There's even some red flag warnings in parts of Northern California. Here's a bit of a deeper look into the tornado watch. You can see here several tornadoes are likely. Scatter hail up to tennis ball size is also likely, and scatter gusts up to 75 miles per hour is also likely. So definitely almost like a loaded gun tornado watch that is out there. Here's some storm reports from yesterday. Yesterday was actually kind of an active day in the parts of the central U.S. Got big time hailstorms for Nebraska, all the way up into portions of Minnesota. Even some damaged wind gusts also occurred out there as well. The largest hailstone I've heard was nearly 6 inches in diameter, and I believe that was in Nebraska's, and that is quite some significant hail out there. So yeah, there was definitely quite a bit of stuff that was happening yesterday, and I think today will be a little bit bigger than yesterday. Here's the SPC outlook here for today. Got a moderate risk for severe weather from far east or South Dakota, and includes a good chunk of Minnesota. Here's your tornado probabilities. There is a 50% hatched area, which indicates there's a 50% chance of tornadoes in 25 miles of any given point. And there could be the potential for some strong tornadoes as well. Damage winds will be a possibility. That's also 45% hatched. There could also be some significant hail out there too. You also notice there's also a separate area from portions of central Iowa down into northeastern Kansas. So that's going to be another area to monitor as well for the potential for all hazards as well. There's going to be two different areas today. Day two, which is tomorrow, got the enhanced risk for severe weather from portions of the panhandle of Texas into portions of northern Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas as well. And that slight risk extends all the way up into the Canadian border into portions of eastern Michigan. Here's your tornado probability. So you can see here it's not really a big deal. There are two different 5% risk areas. There's one in the parts of the Texas panhandle, and there's another one in northern Illinois. Low probabilities, but the tornado risk is still there. Damage woods will be a possibility, but that main threat in that enhanced risk is actually going to be hail. There's going to be a lot of instability in place, which could lead to some significant hailstorms out there too. Then on day three, which is Wednesday, got two different slight risk areas. You got one in the portions of the Southern Plains. There's another one up in the portions of the Northeast as well. Really, Wednesday doesn't look to be a big day or anything. Mostly, I think the main threats is going to be wind and hail on day three. We won't talk much about Wednesday today. And there's actually a slight risk for severe weather on day four for portions of the Mid-Atlantic, but we're not really going to talk much about that today. We may talk about that in a later video. Let's talk about the current environment for today's severe weather risk. Just looking into some of these Mexico discussions here. And it seems like a new tornado watch will be issued very soon for a good chunk of Minnesota and even the portions of South Dakota. But let's talk about the current environment And we got a lot of instability in place out there, up to 3,500 joules per kilogram, and that's just surface space. So yeah, there's a lot of instability out there. When it comes to mixed layer, it's up to 2,500. So you got a pretty good combination when it comes to surface space and mixed layer. That could be favorable for some big time hail out there. And some of these numbers are expected to increase as the day goes on, unless you get thunderstorm development in there. Yeah, that can help bring the numbers down a little bit. Down Draft Cape, there are some high numbers to the south. Now, for the majority of the state of Minnesota, the numbers are not very impressive, but there are some high numbers just to the south, which can be favorable for some significant damage and winds. Low level rates is another ingredient when it comes to damage and winds. You know what? The numbers are not very impressive, but then again, we're just in the afternoon hours. We still got several hours of daylight left, so I still expect these numbers to increase as kind of the day goes on out there once again. In wind shear, there is a lot of wind shear. When it comes to a bulk shear, the effective layer, it's up to 75 knots. So you got a lot of wind shear that's in place. And here's sort of Felicity, the effective layer, and you got numbers up to 300. So you got a good combination of instability and wind shear. And when it comes to the significant torque parameters, check that out. That's a number of a 5 in the parts of summer Minnesota. We're not even at peak time heating yet. We're still a couple hours away. So I imagine these numbers, wherever we get later today, is going to be quite high. I've seen on some of the models, some of those significant torque parameter values are as high as a 7 or an 8 out there. So yeah, those are quite some significant numbers out there. And large hail can be an issue out there. The large hail parameters up as high as a 20 out there, so that's going to be another issue. What's also interesting, the derecho uh, composite is pretty elevated. It's up as high as a 14. Now, still questionable if we're going to see a derecho. I think there's the possibilities there we could see a derecho out there, but I'm not a very 100% certain on that, but the potential could be there. But regardless if there's going to be a derecho or not, I still expect quite a significant line of storms out there, and we do expect new development to happen out ahead in the main line as well. And by the way, the movement of these storms are actually going to be kind of moving to the northeast, and any supercell that develops out ahead of it can be significant, especially when it comes to the tornado risk. I mean, you just saw the significant tornado parameters up to a 5, and anything over a 2, uh, conditions can be favorable for strong tornadoes. So when you get numbers up as high as a 5, you could be talking about the potential for intense tornadoes. It's only 3 o'clock my time, so in their time, it's about 2 o'clock. So, I mean, these are some pretty good numbers already. And some of these numbers are going to continue to rise as the day goes on. So, this is quite a concerning environment out there. And let's check out the latest HER model, the 17Z run. And you'll see here what I'm talking about here when these storms develop out ahead of the main line. You can see here, here's your line here that could bring that significant damage wind risk, but the tornado risk, the greatest risk for it is going to be these individual cells out ahead of it. And really, wherever I look into some of these soundings here for some of the models later down the road, conditions could be favorable for the potential for a long track, strong tornadoes. I cannot rule out a potential for a violent tornado out there. I mean, the conditions are you just got a very high ceiling type of environment is what I kind of see here, especially if you're going to have discrete cells like that. That really ramps up your tornado risk. Um, out there. And I'm going to show you guys these updraft felicity swaths. And typically when you look into updraft felicity swaths, the more accurate swaths is in the lower levels because it kind of gives you a better idea, when it kind of comes to tornadoes. And check out these numbers out here. You got some significant numbers when it comes to updraft felicity, especially in the lower levels. And you notice here, each of these individual tracks indicates rotating thunderstorms. And you can see there's a lot out there. But you also notice of how long these rotation tracks last. Any of these could be potential tornadoes, and they could potentially be a long track as well. So, given that said, if you live over in the portions of eastern South Dakota and over portions of central and northern Minnesota, definitely need to stay weather aware today because today could be a big day out there. I'm pretty concerned about how today could turn out. I think the best case scenario would be that a lot of these storms cluster up a bit quicker than expected. If that's the case, that could lower the risk, for stronger tornadoes. However, the severe weather risk will still be there regardless. So definitely need to be staying weather aware out there. Now, if I kind of continue this here, you also notice here down in portions of Iowa and Missouri, there's also a couple other updraft velocity swaths out there as well. Definitely not as strong as what's going on up here, but even conditions down here in the severe mode in the portions of southern Iowa, in the portions of northwestern Missouri into northeastern Kansas, can still be favorable for some isolated tornadoes out there as well. And I think it's going to be in a bigger cluster thunderstorms, which when they first develop, they can produce some large hail out there, but they should cluster up very quickly out there as well. So that's going to be another area to monitor as well later today. So definitely today could definitely turn out to be a big day. All right, let's go ahead and move on to tomorrow's severe weather risk. It's not going to be as big as what today could turn out to be, but you can see here from the HER model, I believe this is going to be a cold front type of setup here, and we're going to have thunderstorms are going to blow up along the cold front here, especially further back to the southwest, and especially the sorts back to the southwest where there is going to be a lot of instability to work with. When they first form, you got the potential for some large hail out of some of those storms out there. You notice here in the portions of the Midwest, you can see here they're not as not definitely not as strong as some of the sorts could be for back to Southwest because there's not going to be as much instability up north that it is back to the Southwest. Excuse me. Um, and if we do check out the significant torrid parameters here, you can see here the numbers are not very impressive out there. Definitely not as compared to today, but there are some elevated numbers out there regardless. There's even a couple of numbers out there that's up to a 2, but I think reality here, I think the tornado risk overall is going to stay on the lower end side today. Now here's the sounding I believe in the northwestern part of Illinois before I clicked. Um, you can see here there's some wind shear out there, and it is enough to support tornadoes. Now there is some uncertainty. Wherever I check out the NAM family up here, and it's the top environment tomorrow, it does not have nearly as much wind shear as what the HER model suggests. I think the HER model is the more aggressive model for tomorrow's setup. So there is some uncertainty when it comes to the tornado risk tomorrow. So there's a chance the Herbal could be an outlier, maybe a little aggressive with it. But I think regardless here on the wind shear values, if it could be higher or not, conditions still could be favorable for some hail and some damage winds. Now, I think the better confidence for severe weather is going to be back to the southwest where you have more instability to work with. If we do try to get a sounding down there, it's gonna be hard to get. But you can definitely tell here the difference between the instability down here, farther to the southwest, and then up in Illinois. That there's a lot more instability out there, which could help increase that large hail risk. You also notice the outdraft cape is pretty elevated too, 1200. Excuse me. Lap rates is also very elevated out there as well. And there is some wind shear to work with out there. There's also some good upper level shear too. And that can help keep some of these storms organized as well. So I think tomorrow could be a pretty decent day, especially back across portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, in the Panhandle of Texas. I think we could see some big time hailstorms down there. But as we get back to the northeast, I don't think the threat will be as great as back in the Severn Plains. but the potential could still be there for some strong severe storms up there as well. Excuse me once again. Now let's go ahead and move on to Wednesday. And Wednesday, honestly, lower than tomorrow. Uh, at least what the Nam family is suggesting, it's not a whole lot of wind shear will be going on Wednesday. There will be some instability, which if we do check out sounding here along the Pennsylvania and Ohio state line, and you'll see here for most soundings, even on the southwestern mode, there's also not a whole lot of wind shear down there either. But you can tell here up in the northeast, wind shear values are not very impressive at all. But there is a lot of instability in place, which I think that's going to help increase that wind and hail risk. For right now, I just see Wednesday being a general slight risk type of day. You'll have scattered showers of thunderstorms will develop. Some of those thunderstorms could be strong to severe. Also notice here there are some higher supercell capacity values, and I believe that's along a warfront boundary out there. But even wherever it checks heavy soundings here, the Western values are still on the lower end. You can see here, well, actually, this sounding right here in particular is actually quite elevated as well. But we'll have to wait and see how models trend here. Sometimes it's difficult to get pretty decent warm front setups out there. But we'll have to wait and see how this goes here. But that is a little bit of an interesting sounding out there as well. And here's Thursday here. We'll talk a little bit about Thursday. Why not? Since we're here, you can see here some pretty decent values out there. But once again, seems like the NAM is on the lower end when it comes to wind shear, but there's still plenty of time for changes. Still a couple days away. Some also may trend higher with the wind shear values, but then once again, there's a lot of instability in place, but there's also not a whole lot of wind shear now. In the upper levels, there's actually a decent amount of wind shear in the upper levels. There has been the low levels, not much at all. So I think that's going to really limit the tornado potential. But really, all I see on the sound here, mostly a wind and hail type event is what I see here. Not much way of tornadoes at all. If we kind of backtrack a little bit and go back to the several planes for Wednesday, almost forgot about this. You can see there are some higher values out there, but a lot of those are contaminated soundings. But if we do try to get an accurate sounding out there, you'll see that similar story. Excuse me once again. Um, just again, not a whole lot of wind shear going on here. That's something we're going to be missing here. But also, there's a lot of instability in place, so that's going to help increase that wind and hail risk. So overall, there may be an enhanced risk upgrade. If there's going to be an enhanced risk upgrade, probably the wind shear values could come up. If it comes a little bit higher, I could see an enhanced risk upgrade for the summer mode. But really, overall, I don't see really anything too big happening for Wednesday. All right, that's severe weather out of the way. Let's talk about the tropics. First time we're talking about tropics this year. What we got going on in the Eastern Pacific? Well, we got Hurricane Agatha, and it's got a pressure of 974 millibars with winds up to 105 miles per hour. So it's a pretty healthy storm out there. Now, some of you guys may be asking why we're talking about the storm in the Eastern Pacific, which usually I don't talk much about tropics in the Eastern Pacific here. But let me show you guys why. Check out the National Hurricane Center's code forecast. Look where this is going. It's going towards the Gulf of Mexico. Now, by that point, it's going to be a pretty disorganized storm. You notice here, just before getting the Gulf of Mexico by Tuesday, it's going to be a subtropical depression by that point. But could have reorganized into, or let me say that again. Could have reorganized in the Gulf of Mexico or maybe in the Caribbean. Because if we check out, if we go back here a little bit here and go to the Atlantic, they got a highlighted area out there. They got a 40% chance in the next 5 days near the Yucatan Peninsula area. So there's a possibility that that storm, the Hurricane Agatha in the Eastern Pacific, could um, redevelop into a different storm. Now, it will be renamed. The first name on the Atlantic hurricane list is Alex, so it'll be renamed Alex if it does redevelop into a tropical storm. The probabilities are not high, but they are elevated. They are elevated. 40% is an elevated chance. Which, if we do check out some of the model guidance here on Hurricane Agatha, at least by the tracks, you notice here that the majority of the models kind of keep this around the Yucatan Peninsula pretty much, and pretty much die out. However, there are a couple models out there that do continue it to the northeast. Now, there's also a chance that this storm here may reorganize somewhere else. It could reorganize here, or it could reorganize over here. So that's also another thing too about the storm here. Say it could reorganize anywhere, wherever it gets disorganized. The center circulation could redevelop anywhere within the storm as well. So, given that said, here's the intensity guidance. You can see here most models kind of have it on the lower end. I'll ignore these ones up here; they're not accurate. Pay attention to more of these, which you can see here. The majority of them shows us pretty much dying out. But really, it's something to watch for now. Could it become um, our first storm of the Atlantic hurricane season? Yes, it could, but the confidence level is low. It's going to be hard. It's hard to predict these things here when it crosses the Yucatan Peninsula and going over to the Gulf of Mexico, because sometimes it could completely die out um, over Mexico. It could, but there's been other cases where it can reorganize wherever it gets into the Gulf of Mexico or into parts of the Caribbean. So that's going to be another question as well. But time will tell on that. But this will be something to watch over the next couple of days. But anyways, guys, that's all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you do like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so there is an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put in the comment section down below. Or if you guys have questions, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.